Greetings in the light of the Gnosis. I'm Reverend Mthr Bernadette, and today I'm going to be speaking about some of the archives of the Gnosis. And I thought it proper today, because it's November the 1st, 2015, that we speak about our homage to the heroes of the Gnosis. So I'm sure you're all excited about hearing about them. So without further ado, I shall begin to discuss what today really means. What is Halloween about? How about All Saints Day and All Souls Day? Well, today we're going to have a lesson that is going to be talking directly about those issues. So brothers and sisters, we shall begin. This is actually a homily for the Day of All Saints. Heroes of the Gnosis. One of the traditions that fell out of favor with the rise of Protestantism was that of the prayers to the saints. And so went the Day of All Saints from the mainstream culture of the USA in favor of Halloween. Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, is the eve of this feast day, and from the Day of All Saints, Halloween. That's how it got its name. In almost every other Christian nation, people celebrate the Day of All Saints and the Day of the Dead following, right after, one after that. As occasions of great meaning in their spiritual life, people gather and celebrate Day of the Dead. This loss of tradition of the saints has resulted for most of us in a breakdown of one of the intermediary levels of contact with the numinosity of the divine. The saints are the souls who have gone before into the Palerma and can therefore provide spiritual guidance and assistance to those who seek the light of the Gnosis. Because they were at one time incarnated human beings with all the limitations that they suffer, they are one rung closer to us than other intermediaries. This all begs the question of why do we need the intermediaries? Certainly, this was the impulse of Protestantism that believed that the human soul neither possessed nor required any such intermediaries between itself and God. This is one of those statements that may seem true on a purely theoretical level, but tends to fall down on the practical, particularly to the Gnostics. As the Gnostic realizes how very far we are from the Palerma in this world, and how spiritually blended we are in this embodied existence. For this reason, Gnostics have everywhere described vast numbers of intermediary realms and beings to aid humanity in the light of the Gnosis. One level of this higher and divine aid is that of the saints, those human souls who have made it out of the chain of death and of rebirth and into the pure light of the Palerma. This paradox is that the intermediary beings and sacraments can aid us in achieving a direct and unmediated experience of God that we could not otherwise attain. The tradition of the saints provides several factors essential to a workable spiritual and initiatory practice. First, it provides a historical connection and a continuity with the past. Even if it is a mythological pseudo-history based on legend rather than fact, it is nonetheless a source of great psychological power and is very real as the soul level. On a psychological level, the tradition of the saints provides a bridge between power and the higher unconscious. That which is more ancient has come and has more power in the transformative processes of the unconscious. The continuity with the past, in a sense of connecting with the past, present, and future, represents a contact with the timeless realm of the unconscious. For the Gnostic, the connection with the past opens up a subtle channel to the Gnostic art of memory. One of the messages throughout the literature of the Gnostics is the injunction to remember the inwardly or outwardly manifested figures of saints who bear this bridge to the backward and forward flowing stream of time, can help us to remember our own history as a spiritual being, and perhaps even a being who is beyond history. As the place of the saints is described in the book of Enoch, there shall be light interminable, nor shall they enter upon the enumeration of time. The figures of the saints are the cultural images through which we can access the archetypal realm. Many of the saints directly relate to the gods and goddesses of pre-Christian religions. Saint Barbara corresponds to the Bedouin god Legba in Santeria. Saint Bridget embodies the archetype of the Celtic goddess Brigid, and Saint Michael directly relates to the archangel by that name. The tradition of saints is not a Christian phenomenon only. Indeed, one of the most popularized by a Buddhist saint is Kuan Yin. Even Wiccans and neo-pagans have saints in their backgrounds. Gerald Gardner, the source for all the popularized movements of Wicca and neo-paganism in America, describes the mighty dead as those souls in the craft who have gone before, and they are beyond the wheel of death and rebirth, and they can provide spiritual guidance and teaching to those in earthly embodiment. Another role of the saints is that of the inner and outer teachers of the Gnosis. In this fashion, they serve the Logos in bringing into the world the message of the Gnosis. In the book of the Gnosis of Light, Mani proclaims, "The Father sent a creative Logos to us." The Logos means the Word, and yet it encompasses much more than the written books and letters of the Holy Bible. It includes all the wisdom teachings of all the messengers of light, the spoken and the written. The Logos is the archetypal mediator between the divine and humanity, transmitting and interpreting the prophetic effulgence of God. It is the collective hypostasis of the mediating influences of which the saints are a part. The Book of Wisdom describes the saints as those who will flash like sparks through the stubble. The description conjures up images of lights flashing in the darkness, reminding one of the descriptions of the Logos in the first chapter of the Gospel of John. The light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. The holy prophet Mani, almost as if he were recording a vision, describes these lights that are given in the Logos. Then lights, which are the means of Gnosis, were given him, and he was given authority over all the secrets, so that he might distribute them to those who have striven. The saints are the lights, which are the means of the Gnosis. They are those who in life have taught and distributed the secrets of the Gnosis, those who have striven to receive them, who fled before the evils of the aeon, putting it behind them, and took the promise of the Father unto them. Now the aeon here refers to the world. Mani describes are those who have renounced the world and its rulers, the archons. By renouncing the power of the archons over us, as Valentinus expresses it, by dissolving the world and not letting the world dissolve us, we are lords of all creation and destruction. The context in which creation occurs here is in context in which we need to understand the creativity of the creative logos described by Mani. Its meaning far transcends the popularized phrases of create your own reality or references to the creativity of our egos. We must in some way distance ourselves from the world and its attachments before we can experience a creativity that is true freedom from the limitations of the world. The saints are the deceased among us who have broken these attachments and have gained the freedom of the Gnosis. The saints are the heroes who have served the light of the Gnosis and who have fought the good fight against the archons of the world. Although we might interpret the renunciation as a psychological confrontation and repentance of our interior archons, the world created by them is truly alien to our essential being. We are strangers in a strange land. As the title of Heinlein's novel indicates, the world of the archons is not our home. In this fashion, the example of the saints reminds us that we must put away our attachments to worldly things and worldly ways of thinking and perceiving. If we are...
Good stuff.
Huh? So Jesus said to her, they are like little children who have installed themselves in a field which is not theirs. When the owners of the field come, they will say, release us into our field. They take off their clothes before them to release it to them and give it back to the field to them. The good fight of the saints also reminds us that once we have received the treasure of the Gnosis, we must guard against the world, its archons, and its attempts to lull us back into a condition of forgetfulness and ignorance. Therefore I say, if the Lord of the house knows that the thief is coming, he will stay awake before he comes and will not let him dig into the house of the kingdom to carry away his goods. You must then watch for the world. Gird your loins with great strength, lest the brigands find a way to come to you, because they will find the advantage which you expect. On a very deep psychological level, this is another injunction. Know thyself. We must recognize and confront our own archons of vacillation, falsehood, lust, pride, anger, greed, and slander, all of which we find manifested in the Gnostic description of the demiurge. Before we can be alert to the psychological forces that attempt to keep us from and keep us in unconsciousness and in ignorance. Lastly, the saints serve as an example of how we can overcome the hold of the archons by releasing the field of the world and becoming laborers in the vineyard of God. Our taking up the work of the saints is aptly described in the familiar parable of the servants and the division of their talents, Matthew 25, verses 14 through 29. The inequities in this parable seem very unfair. Not everyone is given the same amount, yet this is the way it is in the world, and even in the spiritual realms transcending it. The parable describes the currency of the kingdom of heaven. not material wealth on the earth. The differences in money allotted to each expresses the differences in consciousness and the capacity for gnosis in different people. The Gnostics recognize different measures of consciousness in different classes of people: the hyletic, the psychic, and the pneumatic. Even a casual observance of the human population reveals that not everyone has the same capacity for the gnosis. Some of us they're hardly conscious of a spiritual dimension of all, the hyletics. Others are aware of it, but do not know what to make of it, so they formulate it into rules of conduct and dogma or theology, the psychics. Still others, the pneumatics of Gnostics, consciously perceive a spiritual dimension, such as capable of knowing the things that are real. We do not need to be psychic or clairvoyant. We simply need to know the things that are real. We need to realize our connection with the greater realities of being. In this parable, the one who buries his coin in the ground shows the least degree of consciousness. The clue to this in his thinking: the Lord was a hard man. It seems that the Lord, he knew, was the old tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye Jehovah of the Old Testament, who would forbid us to use and increase our consciousness. The point of the parable is to use it or lose it. We must invest our consciousness in experiences that can augment the increase of our consciousness in seeking the kingdom of heaven, not to hide it in the ground. If we do not show responsibility in a small sphere of consciousness, how can we be given charge over the expanded field of consciousness beyond this world? Sometimes the risk of obtaining greater consciousness is pain or grief. Yet, if we allow fear of loss or suffering in the world to make us bury our consciousness and freeze our capacity for gnosis, then we shall lose the greatest treasure, the treasure of increased consciousness in the gnosis. The Gnostic does not fear making a mistake or missing the mark. For every effort toward gnosis in the appropriate direction takes one further to the goal than if no effort has been made at all. This is most possibly the base for Carpocrates' doctrine of the need to experience sin, the missing of the mark, as even an arrow that goes wide of the bullseye is closer to the goal than the arrow that has never left the bow. The difference between sin and gnosis in one's experience is whether there is a lack of inclusion of consciousness in it. We can increase our capacity for gnosis by using the capacity that we have been given. We must take the opportunities for achieving gnosis when they come to us. Let there be among you a man of understanding. When the fruit ripened, he came quickly with his sickle in his hand, and he reaped it. The Gospel according to Thomas. Opportunities for gnosis are opportunities for using our light of consciousness to increase the light. Increasing the light of consciousness within us increases our memory of the light from which it originated. We remember our way back to the light. The saints are those who have made the journey of transcendence and therefore can help us remember the way back to our origin of the light. Part of this is the difficult struggle of remembering who we are and for what purpose we were sent forth into this world. The example of the saints can serve as awakeners of that memory within all of us, of our individual promise to the light and the spiritual currency that we have been given from the light to bring into this world. The community of the saints reminds us that there's a greater consciousness beyond this world, a community where we can commune with the saints, where we find there is more grace, more forgiveness, more compassion beyond this world than we could ever have imagined. They have made the journey through this world with an understanding of this struggle, and they have gone to the light still beaming forth compassion for all those yet suffering in this world. The joy of the saints truly increases when one of us remembers our divine purpose and puts our God-given currency of consciousness to work in the world for the liberation of souls. In this fashion, we become reapers of the harvest and workers in the vineyard of the Logos. Jesus said, "The harvest is indeed great, but the laborers are few." But beg the Lord to save the laborers into the harvest. The Gospel according to Thomas. In response to such works of consciousness, the joy of the saints streams down upon us who have put our hand to the plow and the sickle.
1.
When the opportunity for Gnosis comes, we must not put it off. The example is that we must take it. It may not come again. Yes, that is so true. Do not put it off by telling ourselves that we are not ready or not worthy, or concern ourselves what others might think. The opportunity for Gnosis is the opportunity to raise ourselves into the communion of the saints, to raise our souls into the immortal spirit, which is beyond time, death, and rebirth. If we take the opportunities for Gnosis that come to us, our consciousness is increased. And it is this light of consciousness which can...
3.
In closing, on our little talk for this day, Day of the Dead, the day after Halloween, November the 1st, 2015, I bring my message of light to you who seek the light. I remain in the service of the light, and I bless all you who watch this. Please return and watch my next lectures again. So be it.